The New York Times over the weekend, should ugly people get affirmative action? And the economist, Daniel Hamermesh, I get a picture of the guy. It raises the question, who's ugly? He does not define it. How do we define ugly? Who gets to do that? One person I can think right off the top of my head would be Michelle Obama. And don't misunderstand me on this. She said that for the first time in her life, she was proud of her country when her husband was running. So she's got an idea, of who's ugly and who isn't. But what this tells me, now where did this run? It ran the New York Times. New York Times is oriented toward what? Liberalism, socialism, the left. Which tells me that the New York Times thinks that there are more ugly liberals than there are ugly conservatives. Otherwise, they wouldn't be concerned about it, and they wouldn't be concerned about affirmative action for ugly people. So if it's obvious here that they think there are more ugly liberals than there are conservatives. If not, there'd be no effort to give ugly people some legal protection. So it pretty much acknowledges the abundance of ugly people among liberals. Now, that is empirical evidence, as I say. Here you have the newspaper of record of the left worried about affirmative action for ugly people, and they obviously concerned. Now, what kind of anecdotal evidence can we find to support this? I would submit to you cable news networks. I don't think there's any doubt. You take a look. So, hey, the New York Times brought this up, but they didn't go far enough. They did not define it. If you're going to sit there and say the ugly should get affirmative action, who are the ugly? Now, when I first courageously tackled this problem back in 1984, I made it very compassionate. First step was to make it voluntary, under the theory the ugly know who they are. They get up, look in the mirror, they know. But then I worked with a guy who had one of those 1950s ducktail swept-back bouffant hairstyles and wore two-tone green leisure suits purchased at Kmart. He thought he was cool. He thought he was a style maven. He was very ugly, but he didn't think so. So I began to think, maybe my voluntary program won't work. Maybe the ugly don't know who they are. But if you go to a bowling alley, you can quickly see the ugly tend to marry each other. So it's a tricky thing. The cable news. You want to go back to cable news networks? Well, I mean, I don't want to mention any names here, but simply compare on the female side your average Democrat strategist or Republican strategist. Fairly obvious. Yeah. Well, anchors. It's going to be a little tougher call there, but I still think that the citation holds. Folks, look, I'm simply reporting here what was in the New York Times over the weekend. If ugly people are going to get affirmative action, we need to know who they are. And I think the New York Times, by definition, is telling us that there are more ugly liberals than there are ugly conservatives. Otherwise, they wouldn't be concerned with affirmative action. Now, some might say, well, we're going to have the beautiful people are the ones who get to decide who's ugly. Do you think beautiful people know that they're beautiful? Do you think a beautiful woman, for example, gets up, looks in the mirror and says, yeah, I'm hot? Think that happens? Dawn is shaking her, she's shaking her head, no, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Whoa, now that's fascinating. Who has self-esteem issues? You telling me that the beautiful have self-esteem issues? Beautiful people have self-esteem problems. Beautiful women have self-esteem issues. This is our noted female expert Snurdly saying this. You can't hear him, but he's the one proffering this opinion. Well, it's out there now. I mean, 84, I got it out there now. Affirmative action. And the thing is, folks, You know, you're laughing. This is not going to go away. This is now an official mission of the left. It's in the New York Times. I don't know how this is going to manifest itself in the future, but it is now going to become something that the left will pursue. It's another excuse for expanding government, more spending, creating more dependency, sympathy, victims. I mean, it's all built in here with a brand new category of people in need.